We can all agree that fearing for job security and worrying about how to pay bills is one of the worst feelings in the world. If I received a mass email from my boss's boss telling me over the weekend that I have a Monday deadline, one that, if missed, puts me on a list of people who will be fired, I would be freaking out. This is what Elon Musk initiated when he ramped up urgency in driving toward reducing waste. He sent an email to 2 million federal employees demanding a 5-bullet summary of their work for the past week. Some departments, including the FBI, were told by their directors to ignore that email. For example, Kash Patel told his teams that they would handle their personnel reviews separately. I think this makes a lot of sense. There are probably some security issues that don't belong in an email that's going up to DOGE's email address. And I think that it's completely reasonable for those people to say, absolutely, we will respond to this pulse check, but we're not going to provide a ton of details. See us separately if you need more information. Even though Trump's administration is aligned on the goal of streamlining government, the strategy and execution lacked full buy-in across leadership, which is reflected in the fact that the FBI and other departments had to respond sort of in public and say, hey, teams, don't worry about this. We'll talk separately. These optics are important, and this is not really a good look. Many in the Democratic Party are going to see this as an opportunity to paint the administration as chaotic and are using it to argue against the DOGE's mission. While it might appear that Musk's approach was heavy-handed and corporate, is it fundamentally wrong in its intent? I'll say it again. Receiving a cold email like that would make me feel uneasy at first. But after an hour of talking with my team, my manager, and understanding the intent behind the request, I would simply write the email and confidently detail my work week. Now, I'm not so sure that the intent was actually to get an entire accounting of what you did all week. But I think that the wording definitely came across as though that this might be something they were actually asking for. Where it actually seems, after a couple of clarifying comments from Elon Musk, that the intent was just to do a pulse check. So I think that was a misstep, that they didn't clarify what they were really looking for was basically any 5 things you did last week. And instead, it kind of came across as justifying your job by making big claims about your, super impactful work from the last week. My calendars, meeting notes, and my to-do lists, Slack chats, emails, and any updates I make to documents would be plenty of content for me to do this job. I would quickly just calm my mind, focus on the task, not panic, and because I know I do my job, I wouldn't have anything to be afraid of. Now, as a manager, I would guide my team on what to focus on, provide assistance in reviewing their content, and ensure they sent a response very quickly and before lunch on Monday so we could all just move on. The tone of Musk's messaging may have been aggressive, but it was fully appropriate. It is completely fair for my boss's boss to question what everyone is spending their time doing, especially when those people just started. And it may very well be that DOGE and Trump and others in the administration have been seeking transparency about what these 2 million people do, and that they weren't satisfied with the transparency level of the reports they were getting. Or maybe they were far too complicated and they wanted to surgically go directly at the jugular and get just the direct information they need directly from the individuals. Maybe years ago, that wouldn't have been a practical approach here. But I absolutely would expect AI to play a role here. And I don't think there's anything negative or weird about that. You're trying to get 2 million people to send you custom human language responses. You're going to need a human language interpreter to help you collate that information. So this approach actually does seem pretty smart and appropriate if you assume that AI is going to come into play here. Not to make judgment calls, but to help you organize what you're hearing. And I mean, you can imagine that there's going to be some amount of pre-organization. They're sending these emails out. They know which department they work for. They know who they report to. They know what their title is, what their job description is. If the government is anything, it's very detailed in its job descriptions. And they're going to have all of these people already segmented into those job descriptions. And they're going to wait to see what comes back. And then they're going to have AI read those emails. And for one thing, try to determine if person A with the same title just claimed responsibility for the same work that person B claimed responsibility for. And that's not to say that those jobs are useless or duplicative, but it may also give them information in terms of, well, do we really need 15 people doing the same job that only 6 have actually done any work on? This is a litmus test. It's a starting point for the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, to collect anecdotal data beyond what they've already seen in financial reports. It helps Musk and other experts identify where inconsistencies and inefficiencies exist. If an agency cannot complete a simple request for a brief work summary, or even just listing 5 things that they did last week to give context about what their job is, that raises questions about their management and operational efficiency. If employees spent days arguing about this rather than just taking an hour to comply, they just exposed how dysfunctional their organizations really are. That type of resistance draws the wrong kind of attention. If an agency spends more time debating a simple task than actually doing it, it is reasonable to question their leadership's motives and credibility.